Hey, everybody. In today's video, we are going to look at Noah's Ark. And for those of you who are watching our videos in order, this is the story that comes from Genesis chapters 6 through 9. Let's jump into the story. Now, during this time period, the world was operating under what we would call a limited form of law. In other words, God had not yet given the law of Moses to Israel. However, he still expected people to live according to his standards and to walk with him. And it says here in Genesis chapter 6 that the sons of God, or the godly people, were having regular relations with the daughters of men, or the ungodly people. And they began having children, and these children were called the Nephilim. Now, the Nephilim are also referred to as giants in the book of Numbers, chapter 13, verse 33. And it says there that when the Israelites were sending out the spies into Canaan, that they brought back some of the fruit from the land, but they also said, "We saw the giants, the sons of Anak." As the Nephilim, we looked like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we were sure that they would kill us. So this is the same group of people that were on the earth during the time of Noah. And it says here that the earth was filled with violence and corruption in God's sight. Now, what is interesting here is that God says in the Hebrew language that the earth was corrupt in his sight. But it is really the Nephilim who were the violent ones. Now, I don't believe that the earth was full of dinosaurs at this point, because the word for dinosaur would have been known and used by the people of that day just like the word for giant was known and used in that day. And again, we see that in the book of Numbers. So this tells me that somewhere between the creation account and the flood account, maybe over hundreds of years, the earth did experience a catastrophic event where dinosaurs went extinct and many other creatures as well. However, this account does tell us that the earth was corrupt in God's sight. And I believe that means that all of humanity had turned away from God and was living in disobedience to him. So once again, just like in the garden, after Adam and Eve sinned, God asked, "Where are they?" Here God asks, "Where are the righteous people?" Have you seen anybody who walks in integrity? He asks me. It's almost like God was looking for somebody who was blameless so that he could start again, so that he could start fresh with somebody who would do things his way. But he couldn't find anyone. So God decided to bring judgment upon the earth, and he decided to start over with one person. And then the Lord said, "I am going to blot out from the earth the human race. I have created both man and animals and creatures that move along the ground and birds, everything that flies in the heavens, for I regret that I have made them." Now, what is amazing here is that God regretted something. And the Hebrew word for regret here is very interesting. It's the word nakthim. And this is the first time this word is used in the Bible. And it's used 3 times in the Old Testament. The second time it's used is in Lamentations 1:2, and it says, "How the city that was full of people has become like a widow." And then the last place it's used is Job 21:4. And it says, "Does not he see that they are of no value, that the Lord has rejected both man and animal alike?" So the meaning of the word is more than just simple regret. It has the idea of disgust, of displeasure, of being sorry that someone or something exists. However, even though God felt this way, he didn't just wipe out every single creature. Second, we see that Noah was righteous. He lived a life pleasing to God. And third, we see that Noah was warned. This is why he was able to take steps to protect himself and his family. Now, it is important to note here that these are the exact qualities we need to have as Christians today, because the Bible tells us in the New Testament that we should obey God, resist the devil, and be warned about what's going on in the world. Listen, as Christians, we are to live lives that are pleasing to God. We are to be obedient to him. And I know sometimes in your life, you may feel like you're the only one doing the right thing. Maybe you feel like you're the only one who believes in God in your workplace. Or maybe you feel like you're the only one who believes in God in your family. And you think to yourself, God, why haven't you raised up more people who serve you? Why aren't more people walking with you? Well, listen, before the flood, it was the same way. You know, Noah was the only one who was blameless and righteous in God's sight. But instead of God coming down and saying, you know what, Noah, I can't find anybody else, but I'm going to go ahead and save you and your family and some of the animals. And I'm going to destroy the whole world. God could have just destroyed the world and started over. I mean, he had all the power to do that. He had every right to do that. He created it, right? He could have just done it. But what God did was he waited. He waited until the exact moment, the precise moment, when the earth was completely filled with unrighteousness, with violence, and then he acted. And so I believe God does the same thing today. He raises up people who walk with him, who serve him, who love him, who obey him, and he uses them as examples. So you may be the only one in your circle who believes in God, but God is looking for more people to come up and to stand up with him. Now, let's go back to Noah. Listen, Noah was a man who was righteous in his day, but he was also a man who was warned. And I believe that's why Noah's son Ham mocked him when he was building the ark. Imagine, for a moment, being the only one who believes that there's going to be a terrible storm and everyone else thinking you ray crazy. That's kind of what happened to Noah. But Noah continued to obey God and he finished the ark. And now, after Noah built the ark and he got everything ready, the rains came. And I want to talk about 3 things that happened during the flood. 1. The waters rose. Number 2. The waters peaked. And number 3. The waters receded. First, the waters rose. And the Hebrew word for rose here is the word bara, and it means to swell, to rise, to overflow. And this is the exact same word used in Exodus chapter 14 when Pharaoh and the Egyptian army pursued Israel into the Red Sea. And it says that the water piled up on both sides. So the rising of the water was intentional by God. It wasn't just water falling from the sky. It was God causing the seas and the rivers to swell up. And so this caused the water to overflow its banks. The second thing that happened during the flood was that the waters peaked. And it says here that the fountains of the great deep were broken up and the windows of heaven were open. And it says that it rained 40 days and 40 nights. And the waters increased and became bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually they were very, very high. And the word for peaked here is the word samia, and it means to be full, to be satisfied. So basically, the water reached its maximum capacity. It was full. But then the third thing that happened during the flood was that the waters receded. And the word for receded here is the word naphal, and it means to fall, to sink, to descend. So the water began to fall and to sink, and then eventually the earth was dry. And this is an amazing part of the story because God caused the earth to be dry. And he did that through a supernatural process called flocculation. Flocculation is the process of tiny particles coming together to form larger particles. And this is how dirt becomes solid. And this is how clay becomes bricks. And this is how our bodies are able to digest food, because our stomachs secrete acids which break down the food and then allow it to be absorbed into our bloodstream. And so this is the same process that God used to dry up the earth. And then God gave a command, and it says, "And God said to Noah, come out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons wives with you." And then he goes on to say, "Bring out every kind of living thing that is with you that is clean and unclean birds and livestock and reptiles and beasts, and let them teem and multiply on the earth, and be fruitful and increase on the earth." And so, once again, God gave the command, and then immediately things began to happen. And this is the God we serve. He is a God who speaks and causes things to come into existence. He is a God who speaks and causes things to happen. And He wants us to live lives that are pleasing to Him. And when we do, He will help us, and He will use us, and He will guide us, and He will lead us. Hey, I hope this video has been a blessing to you. If it has, make sure to click the like button below and leave us a comment. Thank you for watching. And never forget God loves you, and so do we.